All right, welcome back, everybody. In this video, we are going to continue working with our plot that we have been constructing earlier, this density plot dealing with flipper lengths of penguins. And I want to talk about how we can build layers on top of plots to customize the plot. And so let's suppose that we have this plot that we constructed earlier, which is a density plot constructed from the Penguins data frame in the Palmer Penguins package, which is looking at the distribution of the flipper length variable. And we mapped the species to the fill aesthetic so we can see three different density plots filled in with three different colors, one for each species in the plot above. And let's suppose we want to do the following changes to this plot. So we like this plot. We've played around with it. It looks great. And now I don't want to adjust it in any like substantial way in terms of the data. I love the way the data is represented in this plot. I just want to clean it up from a presentation point of view. So I want to make the following changes. I want to adjust the scale for the ticks on the axes. I want to add labels to the title, subtitle, and the x-axis. I want to remove this gray paneling in the background, but I do want to keep the grid lines. That's going to help me read the plot. I want to move this legend on the right. Let's say I want to move it to the bottom of the plot. And when I'm creating plots using R in Google Colab, it creates them a little bit small. The font size is a little small, so I want to increase the font size as well. So these are some changes that I want to make. And so what's nice about ggplot 2 is we can start with a basic plot and then just add layers, and these layers can be formatting layers on top of an initial plot. And what's super nice is that we can assign a plot to an object. So what I want to do is I'm going to take this plot that we created above and I'm going to assign it to an object that I'm going to call ggflip, short for flipper. So that's a ggplot of the flipper length is my logic behind this name. You could call it whatever you like. So I'm going to use the usual assignment operator, but it's the same code that we used earlier. So I've got my ggplot, uh, same exact code from earlier, but the only difference is now instead of when I run this code cell, it generating the plot. When I run this code cell, right, nothing is going to get printed to the screen. Wrong, wrong code cell. Nothing is going to get printed to the screen when I run this because the only thing that has occurred here is this plot has been assigned to ggflip. So if I actually want to see ggflip, I would need to print it to the screen. So now I can see what is being stored in ggflip is exactly that plot that we created above. And so the first thing I wanted to do was customize the scales, and the functions that I can use to do that are scale x continuous and scale y continuous. So I take my plot ggflip2, that's what was stored over here. And now I'm going to add to that scale on the x-axis. And then I'm going to add to that custom scale on the y-axis. So each time I add a layer, right, I need to I add it with the plus sign. So here I've added two layers, custom scale on the x-axis, custom scale on the y-axis. And now I'm going to assign this new result back on top of ggflip. So now I'm going to reassign this result back to ggflip. So it's going to overwrite on top of this original object a new plot which has these new scales. So the only thing that's changed is I have this original layer that I had, but now I've added custom scales to that plot. And that is now what is stored in ggplot. And next, if I want to add custom titles and labels to this plot, I now take ggflip and I just do the same thing. So now I say ggflip. I want to add to that previous plot. And what I want to add now, I can pass labels all through the labs function. So I'm going to add a title, a subtitle, and a label on the x-axis. So I have my original plot, and now my original plot is the density plot with the new scales on the x and the y axis. So now those have been stored in ggflip. I'm going to add my labels, and I'm going to store the result of the plot with the new labels back in ggflip. And if I want to check to see what that looks like, I can choose to print that to the screen. And now I can see my main title, my subtitle, and I have a new label on the x-axis, which is indicating what is being plotted and what the units of that quantitative variable are. Okay. The next thing I wanted to do was get rid of this gray paneling in the background, but I did want to keep the grid lines. So I can do this working with themes in ggplot. So a theme is a customized style that kind of changes the overall appearance in a non-data related way. So here we're not like going to change really the substance of the plot, but we're going to change the kind of overall look of the plot. So what we can play around with here, I've listed some of the built-in themes that are available. So I'm going to take my original plot, or at least the current plot that we have, and then we can play around with some of these themes. And you can see that there's like an auto-complete here. And so maybe I don't want to store these yet. So for now, let me just play around with them. So this is a question. Question 2 is saying, well, let's just explore these built-in themes and let's pick our favorite one. So we can say, what does theme gray look like? You can see there's way more themes than what I've listed over here. So what does like theme 538 do? I have no idea actually. Well, let's take a look at what it does and we can see what it does. 538, this is a website that does a whole bunch of statistical analysis. Apparently this formats it in a way that they format their plots on their website. And that looks pretty nice. That did not remove the gray paneling as we discussed. But here, again, you can play around. There's like autocomplete. The Economist, right? That's another really well-known publication. So this formats the plots according to like how the Economist formats plots in their publications. So there are tons of themes. I actually did not know that these things existed. We can format plots to like match Excel, apparently. I did not know that existed either. I'm not quite sure if that looks like plots in Excel, but there we go. So you can play around with all of these. Again, my goal was to get rid of the gray paneling, but I wanted to keep the grid lines. So I think that I'm going to try theme light and see if that accomplishes the goal. And I believe that did. So that got rid of the gray paneling in the background, but it did keep some of the grid lines. So that seems like a success for me. So once I'm happy with that, this is what I'm going to assign back to GG, not lip, but ggflip. And this will just say I'm going to make sure that what I store back in ggplot is indeed the plot with the right scales. The labels have been changed, and now I've got rid of the gray paneling, but I have kept the grid lines. And then I think the very last thing that I had on my list of to-do items was to move the legend below the graph and increase the font size. I'm going to pick off that from my solutions. And yeah, so that is over here. And we'll paste that down here. So this is the last change that we would want to make. Let me clear that out. So ggflip, that currently is this piece over here. So we're going to add one last layer, and I can add that as a theme. So over here, there are kind of like built-in themes that do a whole bunch of stuff. And then we can customize those themes even further. Oh, I've got that down over here. We can customize those themes even further inside of the theme command. So in this case, we can go ahead and move the legend all the way to the bottom with the legend position command. We can change the font size with the text option inside of theme. And so I have my ggflip. I'm going to add a layer. I'm going to adjust some of the formatting inside of the theme command. I'm going to restore the result back into ggflip, and let's take a look at the result. And that did take the legend that was on the right, it moved it to the bottom, and it increased the font size of all of the elements in the plot. The labels, the title, the numbers on the axes, everything, the legend, the font of everything got increased. And that's a fine looking plot if I don't say so myself. And so if you're kind of curious about what can get customized in these plots in the theme, you can just do question mark theme, and you can see there's like tons of things that you can customize in that theme option. So I will not get into all of that. I've only customized two possible things, but you can really fine tune it. Like you can choose to only increase the font size on the X label, but not the Y label, and so on. So you can really fine tune what you customize. You can change the font type. You can change it to bold or italics and not just change the size, and so on. Okay, and there is yeah, so that's it. I think we'll stop at this point in the video, and that will be it for kind of adding layers onto this density plot. And in the next video, we'll kind of change gears and pick up with how we can play around with scatter plots. That's kind of a new topic, messing around with scatter plots in ggplot 2. Thanks, everyone.